everybody, it's Eric from epautos.com, your libertarian car guy. And as you can see, once again, we got a guy in the left lane who won't move over to the right lane even when it's totally open, and he doesn't want to go faster than the traffic in the right lane. And here's another one. And once again, per my earlier video, notice it's a truck. I don't know what has happened to people who drive trucks. These guys, they drive these manly big trucks, and then they drive them like little old ladies as if they were driving a Prius. Oh, used to be people who drove trucks tended to be better than average drivers. Oh, he's finally moving over. Good for him. My God. But to get back to my point, it used to be that people who drove trucks tended to be better drivers. And I think it has to do with the fact that once upon a time, trucks were harder to drive than cars. And for that reason, people who drove them tended to be better drivers. You know, most of the time a truck used to come in the past with a manual transmission. They had truck-like suspensions. They didn't handle that well. So, you know, if you were somebody who was a little bit of a fearful driver, a little hesitant, probably you weren't going to want to drive a truck. You know, trucks were for people who had more skills, understood what trucks were, and I think also drove a truck because they needed one. You know, trucks have become very different in terms of the demographics of the people who buy them than they were once upon a time. It used to be that trucks were designed for people who had a need, a reason to have a truck. I mean, other than conveyance, you know, that you had to haul a load or pull a heavy trailer, something like that. Now, they've become kind of mass market vehicles, and the reason for that, I think, is pretty interesting. It has to do with the fact that the government regs, and I've written about this and I've talked about it, that have served to eliminate large vehicles. They've been gone now for a long time. I'm talking about, you know, the big family cars and wagons that used to be commonly driven by people of modest means, working people, middle-class people. I'm a Gen X guy. When I grew up, it was common for families to have big rear-wheel drive American sedans with huge trunks that could carry 6 people, or even more than that. If you got a wagon, you know, some of the big station wagons back in the day could handle 7 to 9 people. You can't get a vehicle like that anymore. What can you get? Well, you can get a big truck, you know, or a big SUV, but a lot of people choose the truck, and it's interesting that these trucks, a lot of them, no longer have 8-foot beds. They typically come with big crew cab bodies and these little vestigial 5-foot beds, which is really interesting. It just goes to show you that they're not being used by people who need a truck. They're being purchased by people who just want to have a large, comfortable vehicle to drive around in. And that brings us full circle back to where I started this little rant, in that these are not quote-unquote truck people, really. They are just people who want a big vehicle, and they don't particularly know how to drive that well, a lot of them, and that's why we have this issue of people who just kind of mope along in these big trucks, which present a big obstacle if you're trying to get somewhere. Anyway, just those thoughts for the day. More over at epautos.com, the web's best libertarian gearhead site. Thanks as always for viewing, and we'll have more for you again soon.